Now we have seen how to create the app in the Xcode IDE, and we have checked out the typical iOS lifecycle and the MVC architecture. Now let's start with a basic UI component called UI label. Now UI label is used to display text on the iOS screen. So we're going to demonstrate how to display a text on the UIs of the iOS screen. So I create a new folder. I say to dot label demo. Now you don't have to create a new project to demonstrate the label. What we do, we're gonna take the previous project and copy into the new folder, and this is how we're gonna evolve our same project step by step, resulting into the end product. So I copy the previous project into the new folder and I open the project from the new folder. Now before you start doing anything, just make sure that the file has been copied properly to the new folder. So I click on the right window and check the path. Okay, the path seems to be proper. Okay, now the UI label is a view component. Now view component requires one model property to be assigned in order to display it on the viewport. So every UI view component will have a main or the important property to be set, which will be the model property for the U to display. So for the UI label, the most important property is the text, the content which he wants to display. So the type for the content is NSTring. So the model for the UI label will be NSTring, and so before we create UI label, one needs to create NSTring. Now before we start with that, we have to perform some small steps. We have to declare a UI label object. So I say asterisk LB label. I say my first, or we can say scope, player scope. So I've created one label, and I normally create one load function. So I say load player scope label. So we create one function to load each view component, so that tomorrow if any changes happen to that view component, so we know exactly where we need to make a change. Now let's go in .m. We have to implement this method. So I say open braces, close braces. So I implemented the method, and in order to control to reach here, I need to call it. So I call it like self load player. Now why self? Because this, the line where the code function is getting called is within the same class, and it's the same class which is calling its own function. So it's called self and the name of the function. Now I have to create the label. Now we are creating a view component. A view component has a dimensions. If you see any real world component, you say 21-inch television, 15-inch MacBook Pro. So whatever you see in your real world have some dimension attached to it. So any visible component, whether you see around you, has a dimension. So a UI label is a view component. So we have to mention a dimension. So in a digital world, we mention a dimension in terms of rectangle. It should have an origin X and Y, which tells how far he is from the parent origin, and the width and height. So the first step, whenever you create any view component or the view content, you have to make sure that you initialize a rectangle. So I have to create a rectangle. A rectangle is of type CGRect. So we are using core graphics to define the rectangle. So I say label rect equal to CGRect make. So this is a function which creates a CGRect. So I say I want label which is 10 pixel away from the x-axis, 10 pixel away from the y-axis. It has a width around say 150 pixel and say height around 40 pixel. So I have created my rectangle. Now before you start writing a code for how to implement the label, I want to give you three golden rules. The first golden rule says create a UI view component, that in our case it's a UI label, which is initialized with the frame. So I will allocate the space for the UI label and initialize with this rectangle. The second step says you start setting up the properties about your UI view component. So out of those set of properties which you want to set for the label, the most important property will be the text property, because it's this property before which you are creating a UI label. And the third step is to that you add your UI label to its respective parent view. So these are the three golden rules which we follow whenever we want to do any UI related work. So I say I create label player score equal to UI label alloc. I allocated space for the UI label, and instead of initializing with the default init, you see there's another function called init with frame. So all your UI view component or all the UI view objects will have one more default function called init with frame. So frame is a most important part. It's most important property because it's through frame he gets his space to display its relevant content. So I say now it says CG rect. I already created CG rect saying label rect. So my first step is clear. Now I write label score dot text. Now if you see, text is a string type property. So I say text equal to, I say Priyank. I just want to display my name, so I say Priyank Ranka. The third step is add to the parent view. Now my parent view for this label is controller's view, so I say self.view, add sub view, and I say label player score. So I have created the rectangle, associated rectangle with the label, set the text property of the label, and add it to the parent view. I follow all the three golden rules. Now let's say command R and see whether a text gets displayed or not. Okay. Oh wow. So Priyank Ranka get displays, and if you see the frame color or the background color of the label is white. I told you all the UI view component will have a default background color white. Now the first task is the white color looks very untidy. I want text to be transparent on the background. So obviously I have the background property for the label as it extends from the UI view. So I say background color. I know it's a part of UI color. Now by smartly, what you're gonna do, you're gonna say UI color yellow color. So the background color of the label is same as the background color of your controller's view. So what happened, basically it becomes transparent. In this case you are able to achieve. But what if the background color is not a static color, it has some gradient effects, it's an image, then you cannot set, right? And yeah, you cannot do alpha properties also. You cannot set the opacity of the label because you don't want to make your text semi-transparent or the transparent. You want a color or the frame background color in which your label is there to be transparent. So we have a transparent color property function which creates transparent color, which is called clear color. Basically it sets RGB to 111 and opacity of that color pixel to 0. So we get the clear color. Let's run and see the output. So oh wow, I changed. Now I want to make my text more attractive. So I've set the basic property, but I want to make it more attractive. Suppose I want to change the font to the bold. And let's see. So I say label scope dot font. Now as you see, it's a property of type UI font with an asterisk, so it's a Objective C. So I create the UI font class space and I express escape. When you press escape, you get all the member function related to the font. I will select the one which returns UI font because I want to return a UI font. So I say, oh, bold system font of size return the UI font. I select and I say size to be, say, 30 pixel. Let's see. Oh, now if you see the font size is so huge that it doesn't fit inside the respective frame. So I say I make it 20 and I run it again. Oh, now it fits. What if I have more text, a longer text? So I say Priyanka is demonstrating how to implement UI label in iOS. Let's see how this, it's a bigger statement, right? It's big sentence, how it fits up. Now you see the text couldn't fit. So that means I need to have multiple line functionality for which I can fit my text in multiple lines. So let's see whether we have any property for that. I got number of lines. I say number of lines, I want to make it say 4. So let's run your program. There's no change in output. Why? Let's see why. For that, I will comment. So if you run your program again, I have set the background color to make it more clear. If you run your program, you see your frame of the label doesn't fit the content vertically. So if you want multiple lines to be stored or to be shown by the label, you need your frame size to be that huge. So instead of 40, I just say make it 200 and I run the same program and I see, oh, so it goes to the number of line 4 by applying some line breaking algorithm, but after that it says dot dot dot. It means number of lines, it means it's a maximum number of lines from where a line breaking will be applied, and after that it will say dot dot dot. So I make it 6. Suppose my text is huge and I make it 6. Now I see it. But what you can see is it takes up the space vertically, its center line. So your alignment property only applies horizontally. So UI label are not good UI component in terms of multiple lines. If you want to display a text multiple lines, your best option is to use UI text view. So we saw how to do that. Now let's get back to the, so I want to create a score label for my game. So I will say score colon, yeah, and I don't want a number of lines, so I say okay. Now the score will be a part of combination of some integer component also, because when I click a pumpkin I want to get 1 point, so I have to update some integer value which will be append to the text property of label. So suppose I say, so I create an integer where I say int and score. I say, yeah, so before I create I say score equal to 0. It's always best practice to initialize all your variables to default value inside your constructor. So I initialize. Now suppose I want to display score 0. I want a text should be a composition of the text and the integer value. Now for that we use format specifiers. So I will be creating a string, and a string which uses format specifier. So I say and a string with format. I say score colon %d. So they are same format specifier which we use for the other language, %d for integer, %f for float, s for string. So this is it. So I say score and score. Let's see. So I run. I got score, but I want to make it 40. Suppose I make score say 100. Let's see. Is it dynamic? Oh wow. So I can interact with integer. I can convert them into label text by just saying string with format. So I've achieved my player score. Now similarly, I will create one more label for my life. So I just copy these two variables. I say player life and I say and life. I create one more function saying load player life label, command C, command V. I follow I will call this say serve this and initialize the two variables life. Now my life will be 3, so my initial player life will be 3. So I've done that. I copy this code into this and I say life. So life text background color font. Now I will say 170 40 so that my frame doesn't collapse with the frame of the score, and instead of and score I say and life. Let's run the program. So it's a score because I didn't change out here something. Score, it should be life. So let's run. Now I got. So I'm ready with my two labels which will display score and life, and I know how to make them dynamic by using string with format. So we are done with the label. So this is how you display a text on the iOS screen, and now we're gonna move to a new task, like how to display an image. So I want everyone to close this